All right, folks. How's it going? Good to see you this morning. Got a few. Had to check in. Had to do a little reading. Running a little behind this morning, but you know how that goes. I also had to move my got a light up here up top that I had to move because I'd taken it down. Got in here. I'm like, why is my lighting rig not together? It's not on right now, but it was like on top of my computer, which makes it hard to do feedback loop if I have a light sitting on top of my computer. So I'm excited to get in here and get started. We're just waiting on the old couch bot to get underway. Our handy dandy helper bot. It's going to be a really interesting day. We're going to release a new video here probably this morning, and then hopefully we're going to push some brand new spanking curriculum up. Although it is up. It's just not populated where everybody can see it right now. I do a lot of testing in obscurity with some of my projects, and just watching the old couch bot, making sure I spot it when it actually comes through. So, and we got an encoding overload. So that's always something to watch out for as well. So we're turning down the videos. Okay. We will see what we see. And it looks like CouchBot has fired. So I'm going to turn off a few things here. See if we can get that encoding error to chill out. That often happens when I have multiple browsers open, and sure enough, I close down Chrome and I no longer have that encoding error. Look at that. All right. Once again, it's time. It's time for the feedback loop. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's a beautiful Tuesday here. My goodness. And I'm super excited to get started. We've got Rebecca in here. Chelsea's back as well. Chelsea's working through the updated design ethics exercise. For those of you that were in the program previously, this was where we were looking at Columbia Sportswear and how they went through and kind of vandalized Wikipedia. We updated this recently to add Grubhub into the crosshairs because there's ethical issues that they just kind of rotate, and I felt like we kind of beat the horse on Columbia, so we're taking a look at Grubhub, and full story, backstory here. Grubhub was caught basically last year in a bit of a scandal. Grubhub makes their money by charging up to 30% every time somebody orders via their app instead of or via them instead of the restaurant that you're ordering from. So if you order directly from the restaurant, Grubhub gets like 15%. If you order directly from Grubhub, they get like 30% because they're generating the sale. So they created a series of websites for like all these brands. They bought like thousands of URLs that looked a lot like the URL of the brand that you were looking for. And then they put up a website there, and basically they were, if you were going in Google looking for your mom and pop restaurant, that search result would likely steer you to Grubhub's website rather than the actual website. And of course that meant Grubhub made more money. This is like really terrible, especially now. Like now in this environment where everything's going delivery and people make virtually no money off of delivery via Grubhub. Grubhub's great, but because of the terms of service, if you're having to pay them 30% when you otherwise would pay them 15%, having them create a shady knockoff of your website, it it smacks of like bad business ethics. So Grubhub was doing that, and the ethical challenge there is, okay, so you're a designer that's building these sites for Grubhub. How could we do this better? So Chelsea was chiming in here, and I've got her response here, and she's making some very logical suggestions here. One, offer a better product, improve the app, um, improve improve the app, make it better than the restaurant's website. Um, and in many ways, I think that's what they were doing. I think they were actually making a better website. And I think, when you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, so we've got a better website than our restaurant, and because of that, we're going to make more money for us than the restaurant. The worry here is that I run the golden goose into the ground. Like the restaurant lays the egg, okay? But if I go to the goose too often, the goose dies. So how do I help the goose thrive? And keep in mind, pricing structure stays the same. All right. I get my 30%. If they order from me, they get their 15%. The other one was changing the pricing model. Instead of having the varying charges that depend on where the customers order their food, Grubhub could make it a flat rate in the contract for restaurants. And I think that's like a very logical thing. Unfortunately, that's not something that I think we're going to have a lot of control over as designers coming in. There's going to be this push from sales that, oh, we can't just make it a flat rate. Although there's got to be another way here, because what we want is more volume. We want more volume of sales. We don't want fewer sales where we're just getting more money. We want to raise the volume. And then the third option here is cover more territory and expand business. So, we're going to deliver groceries. We're going to deliver prescriptions, these things. The trouble there, like liquor stores and whatnot, the trouble there is, like, honestly, you could get away with that with a brand like Seamless, because Seamless is just like, it could be anything. With Grubhub, it's kind of locked into food, and that's a blessing and a curse. Like, there's just some brands that you can't go do other things with. And Grubhub's one of them. So the good news here, Chelsea, is that you've got options. You've offered up options. I really think that option one is in line with what Grubhub would tell these restaurants. Hey, I made a better product than you. Piss off. That's like what they would say. And that's not exactly, what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to make the restaurant a better product. And the concept here I want you to think about, and there's a model for this, and unfortunately this company is under extreme duress right now. Airbnb. For all the problems that you've heard with Airbnb, they were doing something a few years back that was pretty deadgum smart. In that, they wanted you as a host to make as much money as possible. So they basically sent stylists to the homes of superhosts, okay? And a superhost could have, like, is this somebody who has a high volume of occupancy, renters, whatever the term is for Airbnb. and they would come in and glamour shot your house to make it look more appealing. And better photography on the Airbnb site of your location meant more people were likely to say, you know what, I'm going to stay there instead of at the nearby hotel. And they did this very strategically. They said, okay, well, I want these super hosts, these people who have like 5-star ratings, and they sell 1,000 nights. Well, why can't they sell 2,000 nights? They make money, I make money. Okay? So what I'd like to see, and I'm going to push back here a little bit. What I'd like to see is how can we make the restaurant stronger? What can we do to make the restaurant stronger that would also make us more money? Think about that angle for a second, because I think when we begin to see ourselves as empowering of a client, that instead of competing with the client, that puts us in a slightly different plane. And I think that's where the strength is. But how could we do it is the question. How could we make our clients make more money? And then by virtue of them making more money, us make more money. See, this isn't a zero-sum game where either I make more money than you or you make more money than me. If they make more money, I make more money. So how can I help them make more money? Because if the golden goose is making more money, the golden goose lives, right? So that's something I want to challenge. I'm going to leave some notes here, and I want to challenge you to think about the golden goose and how do we nurture that restaurant? Okay? Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but there are resources being applied against the restaurant. And I'm wondering, what can we do to, instead of being against our client, work with them? And the Airbnb model, something that comes immediately to mind. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because we've got Rebecca over here. I realize that was monologuing, but there's not a lot to see when it's text. And in full disclosure, Chelsea just submitted that. And by the way, great job, Chelsea. I love seeing the cadence here of submissions is great. Chelsea's just getting started, so if you can model your behavior after Rebecca, who is here every day, you're gonna make a lot of progress. All right, Rebecca. Let's see here. Where did you go? You went right here. Okay. All right. So you've got a couple things. Branding and then sell wise. So on the branding question, you've got online. Okay, so you're trying to do inches in Figma. Okay, gotcha. All right, so let's do this, and I'm gonna. Oh, I can't copy that. 8.75 by 2.25. Let's come over to Figma, wherever my Figma is. Oh, by the way, working with color in Figma is going to release later today. I've just got to lay the underlying little ambient audio in that, and we'll have it. All right, so let's do the following. I'm just going to draw a frame. Okay, so here's the frame. And actually, I want to draw my frame so I can still see the options here. We have paper over here, but obviously that is all in pixels, right? That's the problem. There are plugins for this, though. Let's come down here to Easy Units. And Easy Units, so select, no object selected, select objects to convert to a different unit. So let's grab this frame. And this frame says, I'm this many by this many pixels. If I go to inches, and I said, you had, sorry, I have to come back to 8.75, so 8.75, and then the width is 2.25, 2.25, and there you go. So I don't necessarily know if that's doing what we want it to do. Will it only do? Sorry, this is my first time working with easy units. I went and investigated this a little bit when I saw your question. 8.75. What happens when I just type in 8? There's 8. 8.5. I don't like that. So let's go take a look at this over in plugin land. Community, plugins, measure. Ratio sizer, easy units. Ooh, tiny factories. They updated this 43 minutes ago. Inches. Okay, easy unit. Easy units appears to be the only one. I am curious about this because I can't tell for certain. Let's see what happened. Let's go to this little site here and see if we is it like a paid upgrade to be able to do extra space? I don't know. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm not completely certain. It seems like it does not take pixels, which really sucks. Now there's some hacky ways I can work around that. So for instance, if I said, okay, well this is 1. All right. So 1 and 1. I know that that's a 1-inch square. And if I change this to 9, I know that I need to pull back. Let's see here. Yeah, it's just it doesn't appear to do fractions in that. Although what I do know is that if I really wanted to get hacky with it, I could just say, okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna do this little hacky thing, and this is like total hacky. But it, if I know that this is an inch, sorry, then I know that that is a 1/4 inch. And if you need 8.75, I'm just gonna grab one of these bad boys, and then I will. So that's 8.75 right there. Hey. So now I know that's 8.75. That's a hack. And the other way was 2. Hey, that's me. Although this is 2.25. Okay. So I'll go back down here to Easy units. I am gonna like submit a question though because I'm not sure. Inches. Oh, Christ. Does that every time. So let's say, oh, sorry. Let's say 9 and then 2. Okay, so there's 9 and 2. We know this really needs to be 8.75. So here is 8.75, and it needs to be deeper by a 1/4 inch. This is a 1/4 inch. So we'll grow our frame a long ways. Oh, look at that. Isn't that fun? Look at that. Okay, so what it would appear is that it can measure in inches, which it just did, but it can't create. I mean, it can measure in 0.75, but it can't create. I've got to think that that's a bug. I've got to think that it's that they intend for this to be measuring like this. I'm gonna send them a question mark. But that does in fact get us to the size that I was wanting to get to, because now we have the 8.75 by the 2.25, which is in fact what you were going for here. But it's frustrating because like the other one is just so much crazier than that. 7.3125, 1.1825. Now, based on what I'm seeing, this should do it, but it's not doing it right now. But that's the only way that I know. That's the only thing that I have in my toolbox right now for doing it. So that one's called Easy Units, and we need this to be a bit better. And if you change this to pixels, it's just going to blow that up. So don't do that. Anyway, so I'm going to leave that there. Easy unit. So and I have it on my list to send them a note and ask them about properly, like, can we properly measure this stuff? So cell wise, helping you. Oh yeah. So help me learn how to implement CSS grid only for cell-wise and CarePoint case studies. Oh, and then you have a question about the Figma background, about the background color. Let's take a look at that real quick, and then we'll get into the CSS. Yeah, I hate it when I have to, like, oh, it's almost there. Tool that updated 41 minutes ago, but it's not there yet. Also, I've got a call with Figma tomorrow. Very excited about that. I'm gonna ask them some questions. Maybe I'll ask them about, hey, can we measure print inches? Because I have some people that want to use this for print. Although there's another problem there, and it's that you can't export CMYK, which is needed for print. So if you do this work in Figma, you then need to carry it into like Photoshop and then convert it to CMYK so that it prints with cyan, magenta, yellow, black instead of red, green, blue, because RGB is not. Printer has cyan, magenta, yellow, and the fourth color is black. RGB is, you know this because you've been in the physical product world, but I'm saying it for the benefit of everybody. Related to this, I think it's fine, and we can see this in action in your CSS. I think it's fine. It's a button. It's a button. It's gradient. It's got movement to it. It doesn't disturb me, I guess. I guess what I'm saying is I am very, if it fits in with the like if this became, for instance, and I'm just going to add a layer here. If this became, that's weird. Oh, well, I got to add it to the fill. If this became white, or if it became, orange, I think that would be very weird because it wouldn't fit with the rest of your site. So the rest of your site is like this with the gradient buttons. That's fine. That's fine. As long as it's consistent with the rest of your site, that's fine. If it wasn't, then we'd have an issue. Okay, but we don't. We don't have an issue. Consistency is what matters. So I would just stick with it. I'd stick with it. Okay, so while we're here though, we have this we have cell-wise, all right? And you've got, we talked about this yesterday. You've got a design that right now, and I'm going to come up top and kind of draw this out in rectangles. You've got a hero unit, okay? You've got a hero unit. And then inside of that hero unit, you've got essentially two zones. You've got this left rail of sorts, and I'm just leaving it kind of down so that we can see it. And I'm going to give it some little garish color so that it's easier to pick out. I don't want to make it blue or something where it's hard to see. And then you've got the right zone, which is the image. And right now it's hard to say, okay, we'll put an even margin around this because you don't really have an even margin. You've got this image over here and it's bigger, and that's fine. That's fine. In this particular instance, you're not going to have an even margin. But what you have right now, the way this is constructed, it's not constructed in a two-column design. It is constructed with one column that floats on top of a larger image, and I meant to copy that. Right now, the way this is constructed is the second part is really just a background image, and the background image, you just kind of are placing it, and the problem is that when this shrinks, and we'll draw this in. Okay, you've got this one placed as a background image, and we'll make that one slightly different color. When this whole thing shrinks, this just slides into and collides with this left-hand side because there's no separation between the two. What we need is something that's a bit more responsive. Okay, this design works well for your other hero units where you don't really have a set shape over here. It's just generally speaking, you've got other hero units where it just starts at the edge, which was convenient when you started this whole process and all your hero units were like legitimate background elements, not something that looked like a desktop with a phone. All right. So some of your later case studies that you've been doing for clients, it's like, okay, I'm going to show you the website and a phone, and that's fine. That's fine. But I think this requires a different construction. The way that I would do this, and I'm just gonna go over to CodePen and we're gonna create, because I want to give you some base code that's away from everything else. I don't want you necessarily, I would literally just pick up all the code that is in this area and like put it into a div. All right. And I think you've got it that way. It's what you do with this image over here that matters. All right. So let's go ahead and hop over to CodePen. CodePen. And we are just going to create a new one from scratch. We'll do this one from template. presets template. That should give us some background. Yeah, it gives us the reset and all that stuff. So we're gonna say, well, we'll say section close the section, and this is your hero. So and that allows us to come down and say, okay, well, we don't need any JavaScript for this little example. Dot hero width is 100% because that's what you've got. Height, we're gonna give this a height so we can actually see it move. So we'll just say 80 VH, so 80 vertical height, and let's go ahead and give it a background color. And we'll just say this one is red. Okay. So that created the shape. Let's switch this down. And now we want two columns inside of this. All right. So we basically want a div and another div. So we're just going to call this one class left. And we'll put some content in here. H1. This is cell-wise. Content. It's cell-wise content. And then we'll say this one over here is going to be class right. And this will be cell-wise photo. And actually, if I wanted to, pull in one of my handy-dandy images, could do that. I'm going to come down here to my assets and grab. We'll grab the gold experience today, and we'll copy the URL, and off we go. Save it. It should pop up. All right, so there's the gold experience. Thanks, Prince. It's always nice when Prince can come along. No, I don't want to answer that phone call. Leave me alone. People calling me on the phone. What are they thinking? So we have content to the left. We have content to the right. What we need to do now is basically say, okay, the display on hero is going to be grid. So display grid, and that should allow us to see these as two separate elements. And we'll say grid. Okay, so now this is, and for this I'm going to put a class of full on the image. That way it just kind of fills out the space. I have to create that class, of course. Dot full with 100%. You've seen me do this before, although normally I actually use a % sign, not a $sign. So there's 100%. It goes deep, but what we really need on this hero unit here is we need the left and right to have a little well, we need to have margin, which is part of the problem. That should take care of. Didn't take care of it. Let's go ahead and let's shift grid off of this, and we'll just put this in a div. We'll call the div grid. Div class equals grid. This allows us to basically have the background exist without. So now we'll move that over. This div of grid will copy these elements over off of hero. Ooh, now we're getting really weird. We'll say dot grid. All right, here's where we are. We need this to have a width that allows for some sort of margin, and you're going to need this in your design anyway. So width, you know, there's a couple of different ways you could do this. You could say, okay, my width is 70%, and then you could do margin 0 auto if you want it to. So that moves this to the inside. And if you wanted to put a background color on this, you could say, okay, background color is yellow. And that should show you like how this is setting up on the screen. So this is very much, I have content to the left, I have content to the right. You probably want a grid gap on yours. So grid gap, and type it, that keystroke is just getting in the way. So grid gap of 10 pixels. What you can't see with the background yellow is where that gap is existing. So I'm going to get rid of that grid gap there. I also, frankly, just want this away from the top. So I'm going to say margin top. 1 rem. Actually, let's say padding top. Alright, so that gets it away from the top and make it like 5. Okay, this is very much beginning to set itself up a lot like your actual project. You'd have a lot of content over here. You'd have content over here. As this grew and shrank, this image should move in such a way that it doesn't get in the way of the content that is over here. I'm going to go ahead and create a left and right. So left, and then we'll say background color yellow. And now you can kind of see where that grid gap is. If you want that grid gap to be larger, instead of 10 pixels, I have rims set up here, so I could just say 2 rem. So essentially you're getting that left-right dynamic. But this is where we come in and we begin talking about grid area. So this is grid area left. And this is grid area, or sorry, and you can guess that this is going to be grid area right. Stop me if this is seeming familiar to you, because you've done this before. Okay, we're just using grid areas to define where things are laid out on the page. So this right now is a situation where I could come through and say, oh, well, instead of grid template columns, let's do grid area. And the syntax here is always troubling for me. So I'm going to go to grid area, grid template areas. So that reminds me right away what I'm looking for. I'm looking for grid template areas. And with grid template areas, I tell it basically what I want it, what type of structure I want it to have. So grid template areas, we are going to come through, and if I can find my way back to this, I always get lost because I'm like, what am I drawing? What am I making this in? Oh, yeah. I'm making it in CodePen. Grid template areas. And this is going to be left and right. And that makes it side by side. If I said that I wanted it to be left and then right, and make it top and bottom. And what this really requires is 1FR. So what's my structure? It's 1FR. If I just made it left and right, there's no structure. It's just going to be left and right. If I said left and right this way, there's no grid structure here. I've just determined what it's going to be right there, and it's determining by the size of the shapes that are here. Now, if I came back and I said, okay, grid template columns 1FR, 1FR, 4FR, it's going to give a lot more to the album. If I flipped it around, 4FR, 1FR, it puts it a lot more on the other side. Okay, so you can come through here and really define what you want it to be. Right now, when I just said 1FR, it's just saying, oh, well, the album, because of the depth of this, the album needs to be a certain size. So let's come through and actually let's say 1FR, 2FR, because you have an image that's wider to the right. This design here, though, is really something that I would use more in the media query. So I do at media query, and let's go get the syntax for media queries. So media queries, your syntax, media, max width, min width. I always go with minimum width. Again, I'm over here. Nope, that's not it. That's it. Media min width. 500 pixels. I want this to really be top and bottom. Left, right. Unless, and I'm going to get rid of the one. I'm going to get rid of that design. So when this is in a mobile design, I want this to be top and bottom. And really, for you, I don't want left to be on top. I want right to be on top because I want the image to shift to the top. So there's right. And I've broken something. Come over a size. It's going to go left, right. There's something busted here. Class left, class right. This should be flipped. So there's left, right. So grid, template, column, 1FR. And it's interesting that that grid area is not aligning the way that I would want it to align. I get the feeling this is not saving properly, so let's save it. Grid structure example. Save. Let's come back to this. Let's close it and reopen it. CodePen gets this way sometimes. You go so long without saving it, and then it just... So, I've got this. That's what we want. Sorry, I've got some background noise here. Left, right, full, grid, left, right, right, left. Let's take a look at our syntax again. Grid template areas. Yeah, that would appear to be it. And it's set up here. You can see here how exactly how it's setting up. Head, main. Oh, I see it now. I see it. Oh no. No, I thought for sure I'd put a extra column in there, but I haven't. And then with and. So let's see what's going on. Grid template areas, display grid template rows, grid template columns. That should work, kids. But something is not quite right in the kingdom. So now let's make sure our media query syntax is correct as well. Media all and that's right left. So left right be like that. Why is right not I'm not certain why that image is not moving over. Yeah, so if I physically move it, it moves, but something's happening this morning. This will drive you nuts, friends. It's a grid, display grid, right, left. And that's, of course, we get rid of all this stuff. So that's right, left. Just want to. Well, no, that's not right, left. That is left, right. Um, Grid template areas. Yeah, it's not making a ton of sense to me. It's as if I'm missing something here. That looks like somebody's chimed in. Oh, hey. Yes. Hi, Lisa. Hello, Luigi. Oh, goodness. Lisa dropped the book into the Discord. Sorry, that was disconcerting. Yeah, what's going on here? I've got some busted code, and I don't see where the issue is. So grid, got that. Left, got that. Got the yellow in the background. Got the grid area left. Let's make sure we got grid areas defined properly. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So that's probably where I broke it. So here, this gets me every time. Here, you need quotes around it to organize the template area, but you don't need quotes around the grid area itself. And once we fix that, right now it's left, right. I bet it'll flip around right away when I do right, left. And there it goes. Now when I ungroup, or when I unnode out this media query, and then I go to this, I'm going to put this back in mobile mode. So this is going to be right, left, new line, organize it down. Now when we push this over, the image is on top. When we bring it over, if I want the image, what we want is we want the image to the right. So image is right, left, and then image goes up top. See the image has moved, and I'm just going to put cell wise paragraph here for display purpose to get a little better idea that there's some more content in there. Let's go ahead and put a little heft on that H1. So we'll just say H1 font size 2 rem. So you get the idea. It's a little bigger, then it moves over, moves down, so it's a little easier to see what's actually occurring. But the whole point is that with your design over here, we'll come back to Figma. With your design, you have this cell-wise, and actually, we can just drop this text in here. Interesting that it's forcing that over. Did I not define the width? Oh, I'm sorry, it's defined reversed. There we go. Come on. 1FR, 2FR. Grid area. There's something off now about grid template column. Is it grid template columns? Oh, grid template. Yep, I'm missing an S. And there it is. All sorts of little syntax errors with me this morning. What is going on? If you can count on anything from me, it's a syntax error. But now it is operating as we would desire. We want your cell-wise content to the left. We want your image to the right. And then when we get into mobile, we want that image to the top, and we want that content to the bottom. That's how this is going to work out for you. If we put a little padding in here on that left rail. A little easier to read. But you get the idea. The whole point is allowing this content to travel, letting this image breathe while growing responsively without ever running into this content over here on the right. So mobile, desktop, and it gets larger as you go. That's the way that I would do this. I'm going to drop this link in here for you, Rebecca, so you've got this structure. So it's hero. Hero gives you the background color. Grid defines this interior space. Left gives you space for the left column. Right gives you the space for the image. And then, I would leave the image. I would just I wouldn't use it as background image. I'd just put it in there. And then really watch out for your syntax errors. I had two. One was putting quotes around this. It's not a string, it's an area. But because you have to put quotes around it here, that's what always trips me up. And then I just inadvertently left an S off grid template columns, which that's one that I typically don't mess up, but I did this morning. But this right here with the grid template areas, and then putting I always put quotes around the areas, because I always put quotes around grid area, because I look at grid template areas and it requires the quotes. That's the syntax little slip up, and I got to tell you, I've made that a million times. You'd think that I'd pick up on it at some point, but that's why I Google and look at the syntax. I don't really need like their idea on how to lay this out. I need a reminder of how do we write that syntax. Okay, so yeah, that's going to do it for this morning. If you folks have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm just going to check feedback loop one more time. Looks like Chelsea and Rebecca were two in the clubhouse this morning. So without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney. I hope you've had a great, hope this has been a helpful feedback loop session for you. And it certainly has for me, because now I remember my syntax errors a little bit better. But that's going to be it for this morning's edition of the Feedback Loop. I will see all of you again tomorrow. Take care.